The stocks. If you ever think public embarrassment is the worst thing that can happen to you, medieval Europe would like a word. You'd be locked into a wooden frame in the town square, your head and hands sticking out through holes, completely unable to move. And then the fun begins. For the town, not for you. The stocks were an invitation. The whole community got to participate. People threw rotten food, mud, dead animals, sometimes rocks. Kids would line up like it was a carnival game. And you just sat there, taking it. For hours. Sometimes days. The stocks were designed to be survivable. You weren't supposed to die. You were supposed to live with the memory of your entire village lining up to humiliate you. The baker you bought bread from yesterday is now pelting you with eggs. Your neighbor's kid is spitting at you. That's not pain. That's watching every social bond dissolve in real time. And here's what most people miss. Small towns have long memories. You could be released after 2 days, but the shame followed you for decades. That's not a sentence with an end date. That's a reputation rewrite. The stocks didn't break your body. They broke your place in the world, the rack. This is the device you picture when someone says medieval torture. And honestly, your imagination probably isn't far off. You'd be strapped to a wooden frame by your wrists and ankles, and then they'd start turning the rollers. Slowly, one click at a time. Like your body was being pulled in opposite directions, and with every click, your joints stretched further. First, the shoulders tighten, then the elbows, then the hips. Then you'd hear a pop. That pop was your ligament separating from the bone. And they hadn't even started asking questions yet. That was just the warm-up. The real genius wasn't the pain, it was the anticipation. You could see the operator's hand on the lever. You knew another click was coming. You just didn't know when. Most people confessed before any permanent damage. Not because they were guilty, because the brain can only handle so much fear before it starts bargaining. Confess to witchcraft? Sure. Treason? Absolutely. Stealing the king's horse? Take two, just stop turning. The rack didn't need to destroy you. It just needed you to hear that first pop. After that, your own imagination did the rest. The Brazen Bull. Picture a hollow bronze statue of a bull, life-sized, with a door on the side. Now picture being locked inside while someone lights a fire underneath. That's what you'd face, and if it sounds like something a psychopath invented, you'd be right. It was designed by a Greek metalworker named Perillos for the tyrant Phalaris of Sicily. You cook alive inside a bronze oven. But Perillos added a special touch. He built tubes inside the bull's head so your screams would come out sounding like a bull roaring. Entertainment and execution in one package. Even cruelty had a creative director. Legend says Phalaris was so disgusted he tested it on Perillos himself. The earliest recorded product demo gone wrong. But here's the thing nobody talks about. The Brazen Bull was more myth than reality. Most historians believe it was used rarely, if at all. The story survived not because it was common, but because it was so horrifying people couldn't stop retelling it. The fire was probably never real. Our need to believe in it absolutely was. The Judas Cradle. You're suspended above a pyramid-shaped wooden seat with a sharpened point at the top. Then, slowly, they lower you onto it. Your own weight becomes the torture device. They didn't need to do anything, just wait. The operators controlled the speed. They could raise you up, give you a break, let you think it was over, then lower you again. Hope as a weapon. That's not cruelty. That's engineering. Sessions lasted hours, sometimes days. Sleep deprivation, pain, and psychological torment all in one chair. And the device was never cleaned between uses. Infection was almost guaranteed. So even if you survived the cradle itself, your body was already fighting a battle it couldn't win. The Judas Cradle didn't need to kill you during the session. It just needed to start the clock. Flaying. This is the one where your skin is removed while you're still alive. And if you just flinched reading that, imagine being the person it's happening to. Flaying was reserved for the worst offenders. Traitors, enemies of the state. People the ruling power wanted to make a permanent example of. A skilled torturer would separate the skin from the muscle, usually starting at the face or feet. slowly, precisely. The goal was keeping you conscious as long as possible. And here's the part that makes it uniquely disturbing. It requires skill. Cut too deep, they bleed out too fast. Too shallow, the skin tears. There was a technique, a craft. Someone practiced this. That might be the worst part of all. The skin was sometimes displayed afterward, nailed to doors or hung from walls. A warning made of the person who ignored the last one. But most victims died from shock or blood loss long before the process finished. Flaying was never about completing the act. It was about starting it where everyone could see. The Iron Maiden. You've seen it in horror movies, in haunted houses, in every medieval torture exhibit that ever charged admission. A human-shaped coffin lined with iron spikes. You step in, they close the door, the spikes pierce you from every angle. Terrifying. Here's the problem. It probably never existed. That's the twist. The most famous torture device in history is likely a 19th century invention built for museums and sideshows. The earliest confirmed Iron Maiden was constructed in the early 1800s and assembled from separate artifacts and marketed as a medieval relic. No credible medieval source describes one. No court records mention one. It was a fantasy built to sell tickets, and it worked. We believed it so completely it became the default image of medieval cruelty. We wanted the Middle Ages to be barbaric. We needed them to be worse than us, so we built a prop and called it history. The spikes were never real, but our need to believe in them absolutely was. Drawing and quartering. If you were convicted of high treason in medieval England, this is what waited for you, and every step was designed to send a message. You'd be dragged through the streets behind a horse, hanged until almost dead, cut down while still breathing, disemboweled, and then chopped into 4 pieces. Each piece sent to a different corner of the kingdom. That's not punishment, that's a press release. The hanging was never meant to kill you. I just hurt you enough that you couldn't fight back during what came next. And what came next was the systematic destruction of the human body while the owner was still using it. The cruelty wasn't random, it was choreographed. The dragging was humiliation. The hanging was suffering. The disemboweling was the crown reclaiming what was inside you. The quartering was distribution. Your body parts became mail, sent to different cities, nailed to gates, left to rot. You didn't just die for treason. You became infrastructure. A permanent public service announcement nailed to 4 different walls. The Scold's Bridle. This one wasn't for criminals. It was for women who talked too much. That's it. That was the crime. If you were a woman and your neighbors decided you were too loud, too opinionated, the town could lock a metal cage around your head. The bridle had a small plate that pressed down on the tongue. You couldn't talk. You could barely swallow. Yet then they'd parade you through the streets so everyone could see what happens when a woman doesn't know her place. No trial, no formal charges, just a community decision that your voice was a problem. Some versions had bells attached so people could hear you coming. Others had grotesque animal masks built in, so you wouldn't just be silenced, you'd be dehumanized. The message wasn't subtle. What makes this different from every other device on this list is who it targeted. Not traitors. Not murderers. Just women with opinions. And that tells you something uncomfortable about what medieval society actually feared most. Not violence, not rebellion. A woman who wouldn't shut up. Every other punishment here was about controlling behavior. This one was about controlling who got to speak at all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Drop your ideas for the next one in the comments.